From hitting the library to understand who J. Robert Oppenheimer really is, to channeling his past notorious character Thomas Shelby, this is how Cillian Murphy prepared for the movie Oppenheimer. Guys, the clock's ticking on the highly anticipated movie's release. And in the meantime, Cillian's keeping fans hooked by dropping the bomb on meeting the scientist in the library of all places. As many of you may know already, this Irish star is starring in the lead role of the renowned physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, or you can call him the atomic bomb's daddy. That's right, he gave the world its most terrifying weapon yet, and he's ace director Christopher Nolan's next muse. If there's one thing to know about Nolan, it's that he leaves no stone unturned to whip up the most epic cinematic masterpieces. And for this particular movie, he hit the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, by Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. Now, as Chris turned to the novel, Murphy dived deep into the books too. He said that while prepping for the role, he did an awful lot of reading to get to know the character personally. Initially, he only had Wikipedia-level info, but the Inception actor wanted to get into the man's head, trying to discover things like, what does creating a weapon of mass destruction do to a person? I hadn't considered that before. He had to lose weight and work on his appearance and expressions to nail the guy's exact physicality. That part was easy for Cillian, since he loves acting with his body. The research part was probably more mind-numbing. But let me tell you guys, he needed to get his hands on all the reading material on the scientist, because the film's script is written entirely from Oppenheimer's point of view. You heard that right. Cilly talked about reading the screenplay for the first time and feeling blown away for two reasons. One, it was the best he'd ever read, and two, it was the only script written in the first person. That's pretty rare in Hollywood, so it was a clear sign to him that the upcoming masterpiece is going to be completely subjective. And honestly, what else would you want from a biopic? It put lots of pressure on the actor's shoulders. Cilly even said he was terrified, but ultimately, he trusts Nolan. That isn't surprising, considering these two are thick as thieves. Their kick-ass partnership going back a decade, this will be the first time you'll see Murphy play a lead in Christopher's film, something he'd wanted for ages, since he's only played supporting characters in the director's movies. It looks like the filmmaker was saving his unique project for his favorite guy. I'm not kidding, guys. He usually has a more sci-fi, bigger picture theme going on, but this soon-to-drop flick seems to be the first character-driven project from Nolan, and probably his most grounded film to date. Pulling out all the stops and researching these real-life characters makes total sense. In fact, that's what the rest of the cast did too. Apart from spilling the beans on his preparation, Cillian also gave us an inside peek at the filming which fans have been desperate for. After all, Oppenheimer's got one of Hollywood's biggest cast ensembles, with A-listers like Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Rami Malek, Emily Blunt, and Florence Pugh, just to name a few. The fans are all fired up about the film, wanting to know anything and everything about it. Cillian mentions that everyone was on top of their game, being unbelievably well prepared. It didn't matter how big their role was or how significant their character was for the story. Every actor built up an arsenal of knowledge to rely on. He said he had to work big time to keep up with the legends. If you were wondering about a wee bit of competitiveness on set, there's your answer. But with everyone giving their absolute best and fishing through depths of historical information, you can sit back and relax, knowing the biopic is in safe hands. Wait a minute, have you noticed that I've been ranting about the research, but there's no mention of any scientific mumbo-jumbo? I mean, for a film that revolves around building an atomic bomb, the main actor would have combed through books of theoretical physics, right? But it looks like Cillian is crushing my theory. He mentions that he didn't read up on anything about the nuclear bomb's mechanism. Shocking, I know. The actor said that he didn't even try going through any of it, and the reason can't be more relatable. Like any regular chap, this info flew right over his head. He said he didn't have the intellectual capability to understand them. But let's be honest, did he really need to? I mean, the movie's approach is purely subjective, and you don't see actors studying astronomy if they're playing real-life astronauts. Their job description just asks them to act well, and to put on their characters' cloaks. From Murphy's research aspect, it looks like he's already hitting the nail right on the head. Also, did I mention Nolan hired real scientists as extras? Oh yeah, For the scenes at Los Alamos, the Mexico facility from where Project Manhattan operated, the director tapped into professionals to play the part, which, I'm not gonna lie, was a genius move. They were not only able to deliver accurate educational speeches and reactions, but also helped in improvisations. You know that's where the best content comes from. The award-winning filmmaker also mentioned that thanks to these extras, the atmosphere on set was booming, as the guys would start discussing the geopolitical implications of nuclear arms on their lunch breaks. Talk about setting the mood. So when such qualified professionals were present, Cillian could easily focus on his character's personality depiction instead of worrying about scientific gibberish. And from what I'm hearing, his focus paid off, 'cause everyone's raving about his performance. Get this, Nolan is so impressed by him, he says if he could cast the actor in all his movies, he'd be a happy man. According to the British-American movie Maestro, the actor kept on surprising him daily. Co-star Matt Damon shared the same thoughts, calling his performance a marathon. He said that watching Cillian transform into a physicist was an absolute treat. Recently, even the Oppenheimer historian, Kai Bird, is blowing off the fans' gaskets by revealing the movie made him so stunned that he's still emotionally recovering from it. Naturally, after all this bombastic praise, people can hardly keep calm. Rumors of an Oscar sweep are picking up pace too. Many Cillian stans are convinced that this is the game changer for the actor's career. That'll finally win him an Oscar, or at least get a nod at the Academy Awards. This will result in lining up more big-budget projects for him. To be honest, these fan theories may not be far off. I mean, if a genius like Nolan and other prominent stars can't stop singing his praises, he must be packing some serious power, no? The cork-born actor has already proved he's got range, with his diverse movie choices, and given his particular knack for intense and serious portrayals, some would say the role of J. Robert Oppenheimer is tailor-made for him. Not to mention, this is his biggest role ever, so all those sleeping on this underrated actor can see his true potential, under the much-deserved spotlight. So far, he's best known for his gangster role in Peaky Blinders. Speaking of that, Cillian has compared his most famous character, Tommy Shelby, to his role in Oppenheimer. He called the fierce crime boss a complete contradiction. Like, you can't tell if he's a savior or a devil, but that's what he found fascinating about it. He thought people gravitate toward such characters, 'cause they identify with their contradicting thoughts and actions. Let's be real, nobody's a hero here. Everyone's got some darkness in them. Much like that, Robert set out to create the most insane weapon the world had ever seen. But after seeing the explosion with his own eyes, he called himself Death and a destroyer of worlds. That statement carries a lot of weight, guys. Both Peaky Blinders and Oppenheimer are period pieces, character-driven, and pulling no punches with their leads. They're both trying to portray an apparent success story, set in difficult times, but you can't deny the lethal tracks left by them. So, even though one project is a biopic and another a crime thriller, the similarities are ever present, and they tell you that Cillian couldn't be more at home in the upcoming flick. Still, if you want to confirm that for sure, drop by the theaters on July 21st as the movie detonates on the big screen. So from comparing the role with his other notorious character Thomas Shelby, to hitting the library to get up close with the star of the show, that's all from Cillian Murphy's revelations on preparing for Oppenheimer.